Most people who cling to the chosen one idea aren't doing it because they're arrogant, they're doing it because the alternative feels unbearable. If you tell yourself it's all going to click soon, you don't have to face how scattered you feel right now. Just wait turns uncertainty into a promise, and that promise can be more soothing than any actual plan. The problem is that waiting has a quiet cost. It teaches your mind to treat your life like a lobby, a place where you're not supposed to start living until someone calls your name. The hard observation is this: the feeling that everything is coming together rarely arrives before the work that makes it true. The sense of destiny tends to show up after repetition, not before it. The way confidence shows up after you've been embarrassed enough times to stop being scared of it. People don't like that because it puts the power back in their hands, which sounds empowering until you realize it also makes you responsible. The universe will line it up is comforting because it turns your uneven days into a storyline. It's also a way to keep your self-image intact while postponing the risk of discovering you might need to practice longer than you hoped. Then the false interpretation settles in. If you're meant for something, the path should feel obvious, and if it doesn't feel obvious, you must be early in the movie before the montage starts. You start scanning your life for signs, like your boredom is a clue, like your restlessness is a prophecy. You mistake intensity for direction. You get addicted to the moment right before change, because it feels like change, without demanding change. The chosen narrative gives your impatience a halo and lets you call avoidance alignment, because it sounds nicer to say you're being guided than to admit you're stalling. That interpretation also rewrites pain in a suspicious way. It tells you every setback is evidence you're about to break through. So you stop asking whether you're repeating a mistake. It tells you rejection is protection. So you don't have to refine what you're offering. It tells you isolation is preparation. So you don't have to tolerate the messy feedback of other people. Even your procrastination gets reframed as incubation, as if time alone is the ingredient that turns raw ambition into skill. And because the story is flattering, you defend it harder than you defend your actual goals. Here's a counterexample that doesn't fit the fantasy. A person who is genuinely talented and still gets nowhere because they keep waiting for the perfect emotional weather. They have the voice, the eye, the brain, the ideas, the taste, the hunger. What they don't have is tolerance for the boring middle where the work is ugly, the drafts are bad, the outreach is awkward, and the audience is silent. They think they're special, but their behavior is ordinary in the worst way. They avoid discomfort like everyone else. If destiny were real in the way they want it to be, their gifts would pull them forward on their own. Instead, the gifts sit there unused, like expensive equipment still in the box. Picture a scene. It's late. The kitchen light is the only one on, and someone is at the table with their laptop open to a blank document. Their phone is face down, not because they're disciplined, but because they're tired of seeing how little progress they've made. They whisper, almost like a prayer, "It's going to happen soon." They refresh their inbox. They watch a clip about manifestation. They open a notebook where they've written the same plan 3 different ways. Nothing moves. The room is quiet in a way that makes you hear your own heartbeat. The chosen one story is comforting for a minute, and then it becomes cruel, because it implies that if it hasn't happened yet, you must not be chosen enough. Now, look at a different counterexample. Someone who doesn't believe they're special at all, and that's exactly why their life changes. They treat progress like a craft, not a prophecy. They show up when they feel inspired and when they feel flat. They ship work before it feels complete. They ask for feedback before they feel safe. They're not immune to doubt. They just refuse to negotiate with it every day. If they stumble into a lucky break, they capitalize on it because they already have something built. They don't need the world to crown them. They just need the next rep. The behavioral contrast is sharp when you watch it up close. The person waiting for everything to come together spends most of their energy on internal management, managing mood, managing identity, managing the fear of being seen as average. They'll research a topic for weeks, rather than make one imperfect attempt. They'll tell friends about the big thing they're working on, but avoid concrete deadlines that would force contact with reality. They'll obsess over the right timing, the right aesthetic, the right opening, the right audience, the right partner, the right gear. Their days are full, but not with the kind of fullness that produces evidence. Meanwhile, the person who treats it like practice builds a different relationship with time. They set up small exposures on purpose. One message sent, one application submitted, one draft finished, one uncomfortable conversation held without trying to win it. They don't romanticize momentum, but they know how to manufacture it. They cut the work into pieces small enough that their nervous system doesn't revolt, then they repeat those pieces until their brain stops treating them like a threat. The story in their head isn't, "I'm chosen," it's, "I'm becoming." That sounds less magical, but it's more stable because it doesn't require constant proof from the outside. Nuance matters here because some waiting is real and necessary. There are seasons when you're healing, regrouping, learning, saving money, or simply surviving, and forcing urgency onto that can turn your life into a panic room. There are also moments when patience is strategic. You wait because you're building a foundation, not because you're afraid to test yourself. The difference is subtle but concrete. One kind of waiting produces assets, skills, relationships, drafts, savings, stamina. The other produces fantasies and excuses that feel wise because they sound gentle. You can tell which one you're doing by looking for output, not feelings. The quiet ending is this: nothing comes together for you in the way the chosen one fantasy promises, because life doesn't assemble itself around your potential. It assembles around your patterns. If your pattern is waiting for certainty, you'll get more uncertainty. If your pattern is collecting inspiration without making contact with reality, you'll stay inspired and underbuilt. You don't need to be chosen, and you don't need to be patient in the mystical sense. You need evidence that you can move even while you're unsure, because the world rarely rewards the person who waited correctly. It rewards the person who showed up while the story was still unfinished.